here today with Tyler Whitney, Hurriwind, the mid laner for Team Dignitas. Tell me a little bit about the game you chose today.
So the game I chose today is actually a really old set back in Season 2 when I was sub for C9, and we played against Envy, and it was kind of like a kickoff or a spark set for me. Maybe not like in the season because I was a sub obviously, but just like as a player and like my mentality.
So you had to sub for Baskin on this set. Why wasn't he here?
His alarm didn't go off, the old classic excuse. Didn't wake up in time for the games. I don't know what actually happened or what the details, but he was not there.
So you kind of had to last minute sub for Baskin. How much solo preparation have you had before this day?
So it was a long time ago, but I played in like ranked and stuff. I don't think I'd ever filled in for him in scrims. I'd filled in for stealth, I think, a little bit. One time when he went on his honeymoon, or vacation or something. But I was like the multi-role player back then, so I had a little bit of like experience in every role. But like as far as this level is concerned, you might as well say like I had no solo experience.
So picks and bans are concerned for game number 2. You win game number 1. What was the strategy for you and Cloud9 going into the second game?
If I remember properly, it was just along the lines of like Wukong was like pretty OP and he was getting banned a lot of times and he was left open. And I don't remember the specifics of the team comp after that. It looks like just a lot of like general meta gods from the time and the other roles.
Did the Khepri pick kind of like what's going on? There's an Athena, there's a Khepri on the team, but it is weakened.
Yeah, I don't think we even knew. Like it's like they lock in their 5 gods and you're like, wait, where's everything going kind of moment. But you know it's weakened, so like you kind of put the pieces together pretty quick. But yeah.
Okay, and speaking of weakened, he kind of likes to do some fancy stuff in the early game, even to the point where he invades the speed buff as a Khepri.
Yeah, he gets his pluck as well, and I remember like being really confused because if you're fighting level 1, most of your damage is from auto attacks, right? Not from your abilities. And if he's plucking, he's not auto attacking. So I remember thinking, and like the 2 should have been so good here too. So it's like really confusing situation. Like, why does he have his pluck? Is his whole team here? What's going on? Why is it Khepri with purple buff at my speed buff? It was just all kinds of crazy.
So Anister saved his ability to get the jump, helping you guys get these kills. But as you're getting 2 casual kills at the 1-minute mark, as you normally do, Stealth actually gets the first blood. Does he make mention of this at all?
No, Stealth is like a kind of a humble guy, quiet killer kind of style of person. I don't even think I realized that happened until like after the game, or like maybe when I looked at the kills and was like trying to add it up and something was wrong, which is crazy.
So after you get these 2 kills, what's your mentality like after the 1-minute mark?
You know, I think my head's more in the moment, so I'm not really thinking like, oh, I have 2 kills, I better not mess this up. It was more of like, now I have more of a lead, so people aren't going to notice how bad my lane is by the time laning phase is over. So
speaking of the quiet killer earlier, more action in the mid lane as Stealth gets his 2nd kill. Probably doesn't make mention of this either.
Yeah, no.
But then on top of this, you're also getting a kill in the duo lane almost immediately after. Is the team saying anything about your early lead?
You know, if anyone, Annie would have been saying something. If I remember properly, it was definitely like, okay, let's like just keep doing what we're doing. Like, let's like get aggressive wards and just invade them when we can, kind of thing.
MLC yet again making more plays around the 3:30 mark. A nice ultimate that's going to come through by Weakened's Khepri, saving out Kiki at the last moment, but Stealth has other intentions.
Yeah, I mean, Stealth was so good. At this time, like, I mean, I think even when Stealth quit, he was a pretty good player, but he was so good compared to like other mids in NA at this time. He's just a monster.
Is there any mid laner that you looked up to back then?
Yeah, it was probably Stealth, to be honest. So that was definitely like a starry-eyed moment for me, watching him kill everybody.
The season 1 MVP.
Yeah.
There was a moment in the solo lane when you were getting your blue buff and Cyclone Spin shows up. Were you ever worried?
Yeah, this was a big like eye-opener for me because I just like he was just so good at knowing the timers. Like back then, people were not great at keeping track of timers, I think. And like the fact that he kept my blue timer even when he was behind and I had a 2-level lead and came to like kill me, I was like, no way, like this guy is so far ahead of me, like in terms of like knowing what he's doing. I ended up getting pretty lucky. I would say lucky here in the end, but yeah.
Yeah, you got just enough mana to use your Ox form once you were under your tower. Even if Anister doesn't show up, you probably get the return kill.
Yeah, I would say at this point in the game, like pretty low level, he doesn't even have any defense or anything, and he gets knocked up in the middle of the tower, certainly he should die.
And then after that, you are the one making the aggressive play. What's your mentality going into this play in the solo lane?
To be honest, I think like everything, like the culmination of like how these games have gone so far, how the game has started, I've just like had this burst of confidence. Like all of a sudden, no hesitation, I'm like, I can kill this guy, and I just do it. Instead of like being too in my head. I think like in the end, like I got my decoy like autoed him as I got blown out ulted, and I easily could have died here and probably should have died. And they also had Athena ult and a bunch of other things I didn't really think about, but I was just so in the moment, and like my confidence just kind of came out of nowhere to like get this kill.
Yeah, and Cyclone Spin's ultimate like just came off at the very end there. It almost felt like you calculated that his ultimate was either not coming up yet or almost coming up, and once he shield bashed in, it almost was like the catalyst or trigger that allowed you to make that play, even through the Athena ultimate.
Yeah, I actually do think in hindsight, I probably thought his ult was still down, because I think I just like probably TP'd back, or just came back to lane, and he had just ulted me at my blue buff. So that probably did help with my confidence at the time, even though I was like a little bit off the mark on the timer. But
it was a very short cooldown, I don't blame you. In this Season 2 meta, when you were playing solo lane and ranked, was Sun Wukong like one of your most played solo gods?
Yeah, if I played solo, it was definitely Wukong or Tyr. Wukong was like pretty strong, if not like considered like broken at this point as well.
So there's a big team fight that breaks out around the 13, almost 13.5 minute mark. Who is the one making these calls?
Yeah, I think Andy was pretty much the only one making calls for this team at this time. Jeff talked, but he wasn't like giving everyone direction so much as feeding information. So it's pretty much just Andy making this play and me like following up. I would never have made this play in this kind of game by myself, but seeing Andy just like go in like that just gave me the confidence to like be up there as well. I almost died, but
it must have been a big step to go from COG in Season 2 to C9, even as a sub.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason why I picked this game as well, is just because I learned so much like watching these guys play compared to how I was used to playing the game with other people. It was incredibly easy. Like everything felt so simple. Like nothing was complicated, and it felt like we could win any fight. So that was just a huge step for me.
Speaking of confidence, maybe a little bit too overconfident, trying to give Cyclone Spin a taste of his own medicine?
Yeah, I remember this. I don't know what I was thinking here, because like I have teammates kind of coming. They kind of like see I'm posturing for the blue buff. I mean, it's just a dumb play by me, like just silly. Like, I mean, I guess I'd rather me be overconfident in a game like this rather than being like too passive. And I do remember specifically, I blamed my not leveling my ult. I was like, I should have leveled my ult, like would have been up, because I think it was really close to coming up. But that just goes to show like my change in mentality, because that's a really bad mentality, like looking back on it. I just shouldn't have been there. I should have waited more for my team. There's a bunch of things I could have done that had nothing to do with leveling abilities. I think that just goes to show as well like the evolution of like players in the game, because I think that's how a lot of people used to think. Blame silly things like leveling the wrong abilities instead of what they should be.
How did your teammates handle you making that play at the time?
I think that play, they're like, that's what we kind of expected him to do. Like they're like this whole game I'm like playing like pretty well, and they're like, oh, like, okay, that's the Hurriwind we were kind of expecting. Like maybe he's like, maybe he's not like what we thought he was. They probably weren't thinking that, but probably put it into perspective.
So Envy, after these couple of kills, were ambitious to try to get back into the game any way they can. Do you fault them for trying to go for the Fire Giant at this moment?
Yeah, so I don't really fault them. If it were by today, for those days standards, but for today's standards, they should know my TP. If they're keeping track of like timers really closely, they should know my TP is coming up. We have Apollo ult, especially with the FG the way it is now. They should know they probably can't do it, especially without their, like, they don't have any ultimates as well. But I don't fault them for going for it. They're pretty far down at this point. It's 5-20 wins.
Yeah, and you're still confident as always, using your ultimate just to get closer to Kiki and start cleaning up. And overconfidence, not always a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I'd say for soul laners, it's been historically a good trait to be overconfident for the most part.
So when you guys are sieging this left side Phoenix, before Fire Giant, it almost feels like they left you and abandoned you.
Yeah, this play by them, them as in C9, my temporary teammates, was correct to just leave me. Like, I think there was probably mixed comms here, that like they wanted to go for Phoenix, and then I was in and I didn't even realize they were walking away, and they were just like, oh, this isn't gonna work without communicating, which is probably why I'm so far up. But I'm also like pretty like new to the whole like playing at the top level thing, so probably just a stupid mistake by me. I mean, it looks so dumb. I'm just left there by myself.
I mean, luckily you guys are up 12,000 gold, not even 20 minutes in, so it kind of helps to be up that much anyway. But then you guys still make a lot of plays on the right side of the map, get a few kills, look for the Fire Giant. Almost the beginning of the end, so to speak. Now, is it your natural inclination to be zoning, or is someone putting the call there for you?
No, I think this is actually a good point to make, because I actually knew to zone there. And I remember that specifically, and kind of like being a little bit proud of myself, like knowing like what I need to do. I think that was like something I was always good at, especially when I was like playing different roles. As much of a meme as it was, like I knew always like what my job was with a soul laner, ADC, mid, support. I kind of knew like where I was supposed to be, what kind of thing I was supposed to be doing. Like I didn't need people to tell me to do it.
And after you guys win this game convincingly, what was it, 35-7, 24 minutes in, beating out the best North American team at the time, by the way. EnVyUs, known for their domination there. Barra had some very nice words for you. Let me just get this synced up. And I wanted to hear your thoughts about his interview after we listen to it together.
Playing in this last one, talk to me a little bit about one. I mean, you sort of changed you brought on a sub, which you didn't have normally, and now he's performing well. What has Hurriwind added to the squad?
He's added a lot, to be honest. I didn't think Hurriwind was actually like that good. Like the whole like multi-role player. Like I was like, oh yeah, he's just a really good mid laner. And like playing with him in a few scrims and playing with him like those 2 games, like Hurriwind's actually like an amazing player. Like he can literally play like any role. Like so far that I've seen him, and yeah, he's like actually just probably like a top 10 player.
Wow.
Like to be completely honest, like his communication's really good. Like he was even helping us with the shot calling. Like he was like when we were doing gold game 2, it's like we can burst this, like commit to it. Like that's just like it's a nice addition to just have another voice talking, another kind of like, okay, this is happening, we're doing this, because normally it's just like me and Andy kind of like telling everything, then Jeff's just like yelling nonsense throughout all the fights. So we're just kind of, it's just nice to have Hurriwind just talking. Not to say like Baskin doesn't do that, but Hurriwind's just actually like an amazing player, and I'm really happy that he's subbing for us.
So what's it like to be called the top 10 player by the likes of Barracuda?
Yeah, I mean, I remember that interview resonating with me really strong, because when he goes to the interview, I obviously have no idea what he's going to say. It's not like he's reciting or telling me what he's going to say beforehand. I remember that. I mean, that's just such a genuinely nice thing to say. I mean, maybe he actually did think I was a top 10 player, but even if he did, like going out of his way to say that and like talk me up so much when I was a new player and I was learning and I was probably had confidence issues and stuff, probably did way more for me than he could have ever imagined. I mean, that was just so incredibly nice of him to say. I mean, I do think like I had potential back then. I don't know that I was top 10 player back then. But he made me genuinely feel like maybe I was.
This game, is this the highlight reel or the catalyst for you to join the likes of Baskin, Jigs, Homie FA, Edmet Yankee for Problem Solved and Sword Gaming?
I would say it was like half of the equation. The other half is probably networking, just being on the team in general, meeting new faces and having the ability to talk to those people in the first place, you know, that don't even know me pretty much before that, except for from ranked, and no one gets a good impression from ranked. especially for me, keyboard warrior. But yeah, I mean, it definitely did play a big part, if not for talking to them, for my own confidence to like say that I belong there. They had a Jiro before me actually, but he wasn't working out in scrims, and they kind of went to me second, so I wasn't even their first choice at the time. That just goes to show like how tough it can be to get on new teams. I'm sure most players know how hard it can be. And also on that as well, like the way that team started, it was actually with Meerkat, and Baskin ended up joining the team later because we were like, we were getting stopped by C9 in scrims, and then all of a sudden, like, we played for some 2 weeks, we lost every scrim, and all of a sudden we flipped it, and we were winning like every scrim. And the only time we ever lost, no offense Meerkat if you're ever watching this, but it was because Meerkat was just getting owned by Baskin.
Hey, you can't be talking about world champion Meerkat winning the NACE like that.
I know, he is a world champion after all. He is more than I am, but yeah, he was struggle versus Baskin, and then Baskin's like randomly like, hey, can I join your team? Like out of nowhere, like it felt so bad kicking Meerkat because we were on such a high. It was just the right decision to make. It's crazy, like all the dominoes kind of fell into place for that team as well, and like for my first chance.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Tyler. Before we end the video, do you have any shout outs for your fans, and where can they find you, whether it's Twitter or Twitch? So my Twitter and Twitch, just get that out of the way, are just /Hurriwind, twitter.com/Hurriwind, twitch.tv/Hurriwind. And then as far as shout out to Dignitas, shout out to all of our sponsors, shout out to my teammates, shout out to my family. If you're watching this, I'm sure you'll find your way to it and try to embarrass me with it like you do every other video you find of me on the internet. And I think that's about it for me. All right, thank you for your time, Hurriwind.
Thanks.